Interesting title. What was that hand over the mouse thing, Pitt? The dating? Oh, the five dating. Okay, I gotcha.
What? I suddenly saw a little hand in front of my mouth and I didn't know what the hell was going on. Hello and welcome to the Quackcast. This is the Drunkduck Quackcast. I'm Ozone Ocean, Quackcast 592, and with me is Tanserines, Baines, and Pitts. Hello.
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 I added a plural to all your name for some reason, but okay, so I added a plural to your names, and then I took it away by saying your. Oh God, I don't know who I'm talking to now. A singular or a
It's
plural
okay,
entity?
old man. We're just here to talk about the old days, that's all.
We
Okay,
are.
Grandpa.
That's exactly what we're doing. We're reminiscing about the old days when you had to tie an onion to your belt when you visited Shelbyville, because that's just what you did. So, yeah, we're talking about how everything moves quite a bit faster than it has ever in the past. So things that are even 5 years old can be dated very, very quickly, let alone 10 years old. So, but before we get into that, I have to bring up the featured comic. Featured comic this week was a thing that Quackcast did, and it's called Book in a Hat. So, Quai, please tell us about Book in a Hat.
Hello, this is Quackcast, and the feature I've selected for this week is Book in Hat by BMASSON33, and it is rated M for mature. A blue hardcover book wearing a red hat with an unquenchable desire for adventure pulls an older, dusty, grumpy, and green hardcover book off the shelf as companion. Imagine a mysterious, magical mustache gifted by a generous French gentleman saved from a fire. Descend farther down into an abyss, accompanied by a dragon, and surrounding piles of cursed gold. This comic is rated M for strong language and cartoon violence. The comic is colored digitally and in full-sized comic page format. Run away from the adorable controlling laptop that forbids books from being adventurous, and read Book in Hat by BMASSON33, rated M.
And that was the featured comic that Quackcast gave us, A Book in a Hat. Alright, so next up we have the featured music. Gomos has recorded something interesting for us, another soundscape. Anyway, so what he says about this music that he's just done for us. It's the theme to Frey Fall, in the words of the maestro, still in a soundscape sort of a mood. Calmness, but demons lurking is what I was going for. So that's what Gomos is saying about his music, and I interpret that as, and this is what we get, with a seemingly serene landscape of slightly pulsing tones, fading in and out and overlaying one another like the calls of distant whales in the blue-green deep ocean. But the thing about depths is that you never really know what's lurking down there just out of sight. So take it away, Gumwallis, with the theme to Frey Fall. was Gunwallis's theme too, Freyfall, which is a comic by Frey, and it's rated E for everyone. Okay, so we're talking about the idea that things are actually moving a lot faster technologically than they used to in the past. So it means that stuff that happens in quite recent history is out of date very quickly. And it can become hard to relate to in some ways, or it can become really obvious that this didn't happen yesterday. This happened sometime like in a different country, or, like the past is a different country, as they say. But even the most recent past is a different country because things change so much. I mean, there's always been a little bit of an aspect of that. Say, like when I was little and I was watching TV shows, little in the 80s, and I was watching TV shows, American TV, and there were shows with people wearing flares, and the cuffs of their shirts were wide open, and the shirts were quite wide open, that kind of thing. And this is very 1970s kind of stuff, because a lot of TV shows in the United States would have been made in the 1970s, and they still had licensing kind of deals, so they could keep on rebroadcasting all this kind of stuff. Yeah. So Wi-Fi and all these fantastic 1970s things. So you could date it from the clothing, but apart from that, technologically, things didn't change that much between the 70s and the 80s. So even the styles of cars weren't all that different. So
yeah, not a massive difference. I mean, I would notice, like, maybe later, I guess I would realize that 80s TV and movies were written by people who were young adults in the 60s. So like culture was big for 80s like TV and movie writers, I think. There was a lot of kind of subtle references to like JFK, to Nixon, and I'm watching American TV and American influence TV. So that's what I would find. Like there was a sort of a vocabulary.
Vietnam.
Yeah, like there was a sort of very strong cultural identity to a lot of the TV I watched that was based on like the 60s. Yeah, JFK, Vietnam, Nixon.
Now you're doing a Billy Joel song, Baines. We didn't start the fire.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Yeah. Sorry, laughing at my own joke. Yeah. The cultural references were there, but as for the technological references, well, things you could date it by, that wasn't so much of a thing. I mean, right. you can see it in stuff sort of in various ways. Well, you could see it back then. Now you can obviously, but say back then, see, it's a different world. It's very hard to kind of try and conceptualize this and contextualize it because everything's changed. But in that period, you could sort of see when things were slightly technologically out of date, because some stuff did change, but there wasn't such a huge gulf as there is today, technologically.
Yeah.
And, you're talking about those cultural touchstones, the North American cultural touchstones. They were pretty kind of, they were huge and quite almost universal. Those things were known throughout the world, and they had reflections down the decades. So in the 80s, references to Nixon and Watergate were still current. That wasn't like something considered distant past, even though it happened 20 years ago. So that's an interesting thing. We still call everything gate. If there's a
that's true. Yeah, that persists. Yeah, very much.
But it was important to know about those things, and it was good you'd come across those in a TV show. But in this day and age, you can't even remember so much of the things.
We still hang up the phone. We call it hanging up.
Oh yeah. definitely. Even though phones are just you press a button these days, but you don't even call someone these days.
Yeah.
You hate getting called by someone. Well, I do anyway.
Me too. I hate that. Like, oh, God, oh no,
Agreed.
what happened? Something
I'm
horrible.
always anxious. Yeah, yeah. Nobody's calling me unless something terrible has happened, which isn't always the case. But there's always like either it's a scam, which usually my phone picks up on now anyway, and I don't have to pick it up, or something has happened. Don't ever call me if you love me.
Oh dear, yeah, and being stuck on the phone. You know, even with friends, it used to be a joy to be stuck on the phone with a friend for a couple of hours, but now I don't call friends because I know that's what's going to happen, so I just don't talk to my friends very much.
Yeah.
I don't like that. Which, yeah, that's a weird cultural change. But yeah, phones is a thing. Like, you can date everything that happened from the last 20 years through what kind of phone is in, the thing. Like a TV show, movie, comic, whatever. What kind of phone are they using? Oh, that's from 1998. That's from 2010. Like, yep, that's just as the smartphones, just as the iPhone was coming in. That's the iPhone age. I can date that. Oh, pages, that's the late 80s. You can spot things just by the communication device they're using in a very granular way. You couldn't do that in the 1970s, say, because the technology didn't change that much. So they just had payphones back there. That's what everyone was bloody using. Maybe in the 80s we started to get these brick phones that people would carry, ultra rich people, or car phones and things, but they were quite rare and weird. And even in that time, not many people had those things. They were more a status symbol. But nowadays you can granularly date things to the year almost. What technology is around, which
it's interesting to be such and I know I bring this up all the time, but Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, that I've been watching avidly for many years now. Breaking Bad being starting 2008, and the series being spread over maybe 5 or 6 years, but in real time or in TV time, in fictional time, it took place over only about 1 or 2 years. And then Better Call Saul being a prequel from the early 2000s. Like, it's interesting to look at flip phones for so long because they're pretty faithful to that. There's a lot of phone booths. There's flip phones. So it's kind of neat what a time capsule that even this new show has become.
It's clever they did that, yeah, because the flip phones, people forget about the flip phone age. They just remember the Nokia age and the iPhone age. They don't remember the Nokia was displaced. They couldn't keep up with flip phones. That became popular. And nobody liked little tiny stocky Finnish funny looking bricks anymore. Everyone wanted stylish Samsung or Samsung were the popular one. They made the Razr. Razr was the most popular. Yeah, Samsung always copies. Sorry, I love Samsung, but they copy. And Motorola Razr were the super popular ones. Everyone loved them, and everyone wanted to have a Razr. And yeah, so flip phones was the thing, and then camera phones was the thing after that.
It was later.
Yeah, which flip phones did as well, but as the technology adapted. But yeah, camera phones became a new thing, so everybody suddenly had a camera. And
then obviously the advent of texting. I think if any of us who draw like modern comics or make modern comics deal with, at least I've found this, as someone who's noticed this stuff changing, and as I do a comic about people like in a video rental store, like how times have changed so much, and now texting is so huge, and so communication, just on a casual level, has changed so much. And it's crazy. It's crazy how quick things change.
Well, the whole thing of, text speak became this new thing. Oh, the kids are using text speak. What does LOL mean? And all this kind of stuff. And the texting in the short little initialisms, that became a big thing. Not because it was young people doing it. It was because it was a real pain to type entire words on a 9, button keypad. Well, maybe like there's 12 buttons, I think. So there's asterisk, ampersand, whatever underneath. But anyway, so you've got these limited buttons to type every single character. And it was just a lot easier. Yeah, a tiny screen that could only fit so many characters. And you could only send so many characters. And it actually cost a lot of money often to text back then. So that's why the text speak came about. You would shorten stuff just the way people used shorthand way back in history. In order to make more compressed communication and get the same level of communication out there with less kind of expense and time. And that was the reason that existed. And that kind of text speak has, again, gone away mostly. It's only retained in certain things like LOL, because that's it's a lot easier than typing ha 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 ha.
I'm still looking at ha ha ha, and I haven't switched over yet. I'm stubbornly.
He's still waiting.
I've only typed LOL like a handful of times in my life, and I hated myself every time. So I'm gonna hold the line. It's ha ha for me.
Forever.
It's such a part of my well, not my speech, but when I type things out now, it feels almost like a period to a sentence sometimes. It's
Totally.
like it comes that naturally, which I don't think is a bad thing. I mean, language is always evolving. I mean, we're not speaking like fucking old school Anglo-Saxon, are we? So it always evolves, and this is just another way that it evolves. And this way is very much linked to the technology we use.
Absolutely.
It's
kind of like
actually really interesting to see the cultural differences, because here we are like the integrity of the written word is a status symbol. If you write something and you have misspelled, if you write with a lot of abbreviations, or if you write with bad syntax, and someone wants to basically throw an ad hominem, the first thing that they're going to say is that you are an ignoramus because see how you are writing things, like how you type and stuff. So our language, like the Greek, like a Greek text, for example, or a Greek message on social media, should be immaculate. No Gringlish and no bad punctuation and stuff. It's like everyone is a grammar Nazi now.
Oh, they definitely did. There was a period of that. I don't know if they still do it, but when forums and message boards were really popular, that was one of the first arguments that would get leveled at someone. If they typed any frickin' thing wrong, you'd get eviscerated by that. Oh, learn to spell, learn to anything. Oh god, they've just ignored my entire argument because I spelled something wrong or used the wrong abbreviation. Damn it! I've been killed.
I mean, the different yours was a meme for a while, so much so that my typing is shit. I know typically how to say things and how to spell things, but I got big fat stupid typey fingers and I don't double check what I read. And so for the most part, I won't care if a few things are misspelled as long as you can tell what I was saying, because of those stupid fucking memes. If I misspell, if I use the wrong your, it's a complete accident. I know which one to use. Usually I didn't tap the E or something like that, but I always have to go back and change those because some stupid fucking prick is going to come out of nowhere like, you did wrong. Shut the fuck up. I know. Shut up.
When I've typed something and I see the wrong your, I hate myself for it. And Like, if I can't edit it because the system doesn't let you, I'll like write it underneath. I'll put an asterisk because I just feel like so humiliated.
Someone, yeah.
I regret it as well when I do it, but it's so easy to do. Or skipping a word in a sentence, so easy to do. I mean, I think we type so quickly now, like just the way we operate with this kind of communication, we're just going so fast.
Or reverse how you write. Like we have like 3 or 4 different E sounds that are written with different letters, and it's so easy to reverse, especially if you have words like, for example, one very usual word is kimiki, which is to hunt, and it has epsilon, eta, and iota, which is like 3 different E's that you have to write. And it's like the super easy way to swap them. And somehow you see this monstrosity after you have sent the tweet. So
monstrosity.
Yeah. It's like, oh my God, like someone is going to come and say like, then, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's strange. Yeah, we've gotten. That's another thing. Yeah, that has changed. We type a lot more now, more than ever than we have. Like in the past, we didn't type this frickin' much, and we're all frickin' typists. Back in the day, typing was something that was like a bizarrely female-centric skill. Like they would have typist pools in offices, and that was a thing that just persisted for so long. Like you'd have like a whole floor of ladies whose job it was to reproduce reports, and that was a thing. And that you see it in so many movies and TV shows and stuff like that. The typing pool, like communication in the offices. Again, it was weird. They had mail rooms that would be able to physically move all this stuff around between offices. But yeah, it's
And I don't know if you mentioned it, like for the typists, that they had to demonstrate how fast they type, words per second. Now I think it's really irrelevant because everyone types and practice makes perfect, and most people write relatively quickly. So
yeah, well, we don't have people doing that kind of work anymore either. Like, just
maybe court stenographers, but I don't even know how that's done anymore. People just probably record it, I imagine. I don't know if stenographers are still a thing.
No, I don't know either. Weird. Because they had to type, they had shorthand typewriters, which
yeah,
just what? How? I've never understood that.
Well, like, it's another example of technology adapting to language or vice versa. Like, look at, I know this is modern, but like just for the sake of contrast, like, I think that, GIFs and of course like emotes and stuff are really becoming part of language in a sense because they're a way we communicate to each other. It's just almost more like a pictograph in a sense, but we're using technology in this way to communicate with each other in a way we didn't really have before.
Yeah, true. The bloody GIFs. Yeah, first it was the smileys, like you would hand type a smiley, so you can even date the technology that way. Hand typed smileys, and then we had the Japanese style smileys, which instead of being the colon or semicolon bracket, were now cleverer because you could represent smileys on like the flat plane rather than sideways, which was the old style smileys. And then we had the introduction of the picture smileys, so with all the yellow smiley faces, and then it just exploded, and you've got all kinds of like things, and then GIFs and stickers and sorry, Bones?
Yeah.
I said animated animated notes now. And all this
yeah.
Stuff.
Especially because it's, the thing that we don't really have when we type is it's hard for us to communicate facial expressions,
and
or like, because Yeah, exactly. Tone and facial expressions are the two big things that get lost in typing a lot. You can try as hard as you can to like, language can be used in wonderful ways, but with using smileys and GIFs, it's one of the ways we can kind of overcome that hurdle and express ourselves, and sometimes in kind of nichey, funny ways, or, you know.
And when people don't use them, you start to think, hang on, is this person a bit robotic in the way they're speaking? Are they a bit like they haven't got any emotion? So without a smiley, you can't tell what the tone is meant to
Yeah,
be. So it
yeah,
becomes almost essential that you include some kind of, like, I mean, there's a reason they're called emoticon, because they do the emotion for you. But
yeah.
It's
emoticon.
like the LOL that Pitt mentioned.
No one says emoticon. They call it
Emoticon.
How do you say that? Emoticon? I don't know.
I
comic
think people say emoji.
Emoji. There we are. That's a better thing. Yeah. So sorry, Bones, you were saying.
Grandpa.
No, it's okay. Yeah.
Emoticon. Jap animation. Let's just be like out of touch about everything. Yeah. Anyway, yes, you can date all this kind of granular technologies that changes through typing and text and trying to get emotion across. Sorry, Tom.
I would say I'm thinking now that even its traces on our bodies can be like aligned with what technology was prevalent at the time. And what I'm thinking is, like, I grew up in pretty much a world where a lot of things were being handwritten because printing them was not very efficient yet, and certainly there was no internet. There was no reason to type as much, and so I went through pretty much all of school writing things out for everything, and that gave not just me, like a good percentage of the kids in my class had this bump on the third finger that was from the pencil. And I still have it actually over here. I don't know if you can see this one.
That's huge, Chance. What is that? Just from a pencil?
Yeah, and like another generations before me also have it. I don't know. Maybe it's how we held the pencil over here. Anyway, I don't know.
An extra
No,
talent.
I've seen that. I remember seeing that when I was a kid. I think it's pretty. People who are
Okay.
writing with pencil, I think it's just like you're saying. Yeah.
And now I don't see it in younger people. So
Yeah.
Huh.
I think now what a lot of people get though is arthritis in the wrists a lot with the way that they
carpal
have their hands while
tunnel,
they.
yeah,
Yeah, carpal tunnel is probably the better word.
yeah,
Just the way
no,
they
no,
rest their wrists and.
It's all the
yeah,
masturbating they do because they got the internet.
that's too okay. But yeah, I mean, and just the way that, like, even I guess the eye situation is worsening, at least for staring at short distances for way too long and more frequently than we did before, because we have a screen to look at pretty much 24/7. So that doesn't help the eyes at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, that's an interesting change. I wonder if that actually is that does like ruin your eyes. You're always warned, like when you were little kids, you had the old CRT televisions that there's a cathode ray tube in there that actually emits harmful radiation to a certain degree, And your parents would always say, like, if you look at that too long, you'll get square eyes, or, you know, your eyes will mess up. And well, this was a pretty common thing. That's like universal. That was like.
Oh no, I
people
just never
say.
heard the term square eyes
All right.
before. I figured it's probably an Australian thing. Very very cute. Square eyes.
Yeah, it was like they say you ruin your eyesight or that kind of stuff. Basically because the screen was emitting harmful rays, and if you were too close, I don't know what it could do. But these days we really are really close to our screens all the time, but they don't emit harmful rays. Yeah, like Tance says, maybe it's an issue of constant focus on a single flat plane all the time. That would affect your eye muscles, or you know, your eyes
like
are squashing the lens to a certain degree, and maybe it gets a bit rigid.
Even like aren't there now like those blue light glasses or whatever that is supposed to help people like get headaches and stuff? One of my friends uses them and he says it works for him, I think. But I'm not quite sure. I'm not a fucking doctor. I'm a pit face. Don't ask me.
Not an eye doctor. Yeah, I'm not sure about the blue stuff. That was a you still get blue light settings on like Windows 11 computers. On your Android phones, they all like will take off the blue light in order to do something for your eyes, but I don't know if it actually does anything. But yeah, they all come with it now, so you don't even need the glasses. You can set your phones and tablets, and they will not emit blue light to some degree. So I did it on my computer for a while. It's meant to, like, if you have blue light coming through on your computer screen, it's meant to like trick your brain into thinking it's still daylight, so it makes you sleep.
The circadian rhythm kind of thing, or
yeah, it ruins that. But I just found it really freaking annoying when the blue lights got turned off on my computer, and the colors would go all weird, so I turned it all off. It just went back to normal colors all the time.
You know, I used to get a lot more headaches until I started using night mode in pretty much almost all my applications. And I mean, I think that definitely, well, you guys were just coming full circle now. But yeah, I think there definitely has something to do with not focusing in on a pure white screen or like an off-white screen for hours at a day. I mean, it's the same reason why you don't want to, you know, look up at the blue sky all fucking day.
Well, the sun.
Right? Yeah. Well, that's that brightness.
Yeah, I do this as well. I just like the night mode on everything, you know, even during the middle of the day, because it saves power for one. If you've got an OLED screen, at least it saves a bit of power because it's not having to produce full brightness. And if it's just LED, it's a different story. But yeah, it's more pleasant to look at. And because what happens when you're looking at light, as you guys probably know, the phosphors, there's certain chemicals that are, you know, that allow you to see light. It's used up when certain kind of wavelengths of light hits it. That's why if you're outside in the bright sunlight and then you walk inside, everything's like super dark. It's not only because your pupils have, you know, contracted. It's also because your eyes have temporarily, you know, used up an abundance of those light sensitive chemicals, and they have to produce a few more in order for you to see. And that's sort of what's happening when you're looking at white all the time. You know, your eyes are kind of working a lot and using up a lot of that stuff. So yeah, night mode's good. Tance has to leave us, unfortunately, so her eyes and brain and everything has been used up. No, she has to go and walk her dog, so that's where she's going. She's just a walking the dog, as the song goes.
So long.
So long. But shit, okay. We went on a tangent talking about bloody eyes and screens.
Yeah,
We
this
do
did
that.
absolutely turn into a like in my day kind of cast a little bit, which I think is only appropriate because it's a subject where we have to kind of compare.
Well, look,
things.
Yeah.
But it is fascinating. There's so many aspects of this.
It
mean,
is.
look, what are we doing now? We're speaking directly to each other. We're like thousands of kilometers apart on the other side of the planet. We're speaking directly to each other over video. We can actually see each other as we're speaking, and this is
pretty much in real time.
Yeah, in real time. This was technology that we only saw in sci-fi TV shows. Like every single sci-fi TV show, you could do this, but it didn't exist in reality. And even into like the 90s, this didn't really exist. It's only started to happen in the 2000s. It was sort of happening really poorly, but say in the 80s or whatever, like 30 years ago, this you'd have to pay so much money in order to communicate with someone across the other side of the globe. Like long distance phone calls, even to different states. Long distance phone calls.
Yeah. Oh man, you should have seen some of the phone bills. So when I was in high school, or a handful of years after, I was dating this guy from Canada who was really real, I swear. And
you don't know my boyfriend. He lives out of town. He's from Canada.
But oh my god, the phone bills that would rack up. Oh, it was terrible.
Oh dear.
That was just, yeah.
I do remember one of my first cell phones, and I was living in a different city from my family and friends, and maybe either my first cell phone or a very early one that I had. One time I had a nice long conversation or two with my brother and a friend, and ended up getting this like $600 phone bill or something.
Oh dear.
Yeah, that felt real stinking bad. That kind of shit. Yeah. And it had to change because there was no way that could be sustainable for people as communication was broadening, and and look at all the other things that came with that too. Like, everybody can have their own phone line now. You don't have to like wait for grandma to get off or make sure your mom wasn't like picking up and listening to you having phone sex with your boyfriend or something. Like,
I mean, different world. Like that's kind of in my original like news post that this is based on. Like I was kind of thinking of stakes in a story, like sort of a baseline reality that people are dealing with. Like,
yeah,
it's so different. You're not waiting for a phone now. Like that doesn't exist.
Oh yeah,
for most people,
Like I saw this movie the other day. It was made in the 2010s or something, but it was set in the 1960s, 1969, and this guy was, he wasn't going to be home, and he was going to a restaurant, so he had to tell the office to such and such is going to call me at 9:15. Please tell them to ring me at this number because this is where I'll be. And then at 9:30, I'll be at this number because I'll be at this restaurant or this club. So here's the number for there, and just ask for. So that's what they had to do. If you wanted to stay in communication, you didn't have a phone or a number that would be with you. You had to know where you'd be and know the number of the place in order for those people to communicate with you. Which is incredible to think about. And that's only the 1960s. And that 1970s as well, you would have had to do that. So, and the 80s, shit.
Well, in the 80s, man. Yeah, like if you're going out, you go out for the evening, you maybe end up staying out of friends or something. It's like, if anyone calls me, they don't know where I am, like, I'll have to get the message tomorrow. Whatever. It's like so different. It's just so different. Day-to-day life is so different.
It's astonishing. Yeah.
And I mean, think of now, like we have our own shows. Like we're just like regular people, and like we do these like people have podcasts and shows. And, like all kinds of strangers might know who you are, even if you're just like a regular person. It's like,
yeah.
Remember that movie Heathers? Great movie.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean it's awesome. It's an awesome movie, and it really. I haven't seen it in a while, but I think it really probably holds up. with like sort of how someone can create a fake reality and someone can become like an anonymous kind of quote unquote celebrity. It's
I don't remember that aspect of Heathers. I just remember the blowing up of the skull. Whatever it was, the killing it.
Oh, there's that. There, yeah. But yeah, there's these fake stories centered around these high school murders and stuff like that.
Okay, Christian Slater.
It's been a long time. I don't know why that popped into my head, but
no, it's good. Yeah, it's a good reference. I'll have to rewatch that damn movie, which is a classic.
It's very good.
It's Touchstone.
It has Winona Ryder in it.
Yes, yeah, and Christian Slater being baby Jack Nicholson, which he had the big wrinkly forehead and had that way of talking, because that's how Jack Nicholson talked. It's just so weird.
God, I forgot so much of this movie. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's a good film, but it romanticized like high school killings before that was a real, that wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
That's another thing.
Know.
Like history
He wasn't a heroic figure.
He was a bad figure, but history like completely has like run past that film in that in that time school shootings just weren't kind of common enough to be on everyone's radar, and that film has a kind of anti-hero that is like a perpetrator of that kind of thing. And then Columbine happened and the world just completely changed. So yeah, it's a weird aspect to that movie.
That's a good point. I mean, yeah, culturally it might come across as not entertaining, even in the dark way now because of modern realities.
Yeah, like the things have like massively changed. That's another thing, like school shootings is a very dark thing that happens now, and there had always been like mass shootings and mass murders that have happened since guns have existed. That's not like we kind of think about that as there's modern day like high capacity assault rifles, but in various aspects it's always happened, but it actually has become more frequent. So it's not the fact that it exists that is new, it's the fact that it happens more and more people are more influenced by things that they see to do it. So that's another thing that has very much changed very much about the world. Like, if you saw a TV show, movie from the 70s or the 80s, and they mentioned that kind of thing happening, that would have been like bizarre and unheard of. That's why you see it in Heathers, and it's not such a back then it wasn't such a strike as like a horrible thing, because it wasn't like seen as such a common regrettable kind of thing as it is now, because we see it happen so much more often. So yeah. I think that really probably has accelerated due to our high-speed mass communication, because people are lemmings, people copy things they see. School shootings like suicides are stuff that's influenced by the media. Once you see someone else do that kind of thing, then you think it's a valid, like it is an open option for you to do this, to create kind of a
if you
horrific
have
incident.
certain kinds of other factors as well. It's not just, because you think of all the people who see it and don't do it as well, there have to be other factors there as well, which I'm sure but I'm just saying for the sake of the asterisk of,
Yeah, it's not going to be everyone that's like, no, everyone doesn't commit suicide when they see someone commit suicide. It's the people who are prone to doing that. But then they will see, someone do it in a certain way or jump off a certain bridge, and then it's like certain bridges will be and buildings will become known as suicide bridges. It's not because they're any better for suicide than any others. It's just because someone else has done it and people just copy the same methods. And
yeah, There's a documentary that I watched some years ago. I won't go too off of a tangent with this. Actually, I have a way to kind of loop it back. Watch this. This will be magic. But there was a documentary that was made about how the Golden Gate Bridge is one of the biggest suicide spots in the U.S., if not in the world. One of them. And it was just, I don't remember a lot of it, but it was just about some cases, some survivors, and just what happens when somebody jumps, all that kind of stuff. But we couldn't document something like that without phones, and we're so much more aware of that now, I think, in a different way, where we find out about these things, and since we're so connected now, they start to affect us more because they're just a little bit more realistic then. You're not hearing from somebody else necessarily like, oh, this happened, and then you never hear about it again. The more these kinds of things happen, this was a big leap. This was very poorly done. I'm sorry. But, it's, I don't know, technology connects with blah, blah, blah. I don't remember what we're talking about anymore.
No.
Somebody else pick it up, please. I just wanted to talk about the Golden Gate Bridge. I don't have an excuse.
You're doing pretty well there. I mean, I think like the way we comprehend the world, and like we were saying, it affects our day-to-day lives and everything because of how we are able to share information. And
yeah,
it made a good point. Yeah, it's technology has changed the way we view these things to how we used to view them, and that happens in many kind of weird ways too, like the growth of paranormal, like people who believe in paranormal things, like, I don't know, seeing aliens or ghosts or stuff like that follows the rise of certain kinds of technology. Because, okay, like back in the 1950s, like there was, that followed like the rise of like the pulp magazines, the pulp, not pulp fiction, but the pulps, things like this, like sci-fi. Okay, I got stuck on the same freaking word, but sci-fi was developing, right? And with the growth of sci-fi, also the belief in aliens. Like, people would see something they couldn't explain, and instead of attributing what they couldn't explain to fairies or ghosts or something like that, now aliens would become the new thing. And the way they would imagine the aliens, the way they would report this alien visitation, would follow directly from whatever was depicted in whatever kind of media. Like one of the most celebrated incidences of like an alien visitation was this person who'd seen, these two alien women stepping out of this flying saucer or whatever. And then when people examined that, that person's account of their alien visitation, they found, hang on, something like there was a TV show broadcast the very night before this idiot reported this incident, and it had two women, pretty women, stepping out of a flying saucer who looked exactly like this freaking idiot's description. And that, basically the rise of this technology has influenced cultural beliefs in like the unexplained, and that's happened with certain kinds of the way like phones record certain things, and like influences like various artifacts and stuff like that. Phones and cameras, digital cameras, will pick up certain things on their screens, like dust, which is really close to a flash, will have this kind of weird, kind of snaky, kind of squiggly effect. And the people who believe in paranormal like see this stuff on film, and they think, oh my god, now the technology is able to capture these kind of weird, kind of squiggly ghost things. And this kind of belief is like instead of thinking of ghosts in one way, now they think of it another way because of this crap that technology produces. So technology changes the way people kind of see the world and imagine what's out there. It's strange in that way. So yeah, that's a tangent about that kind of stuff. Just influenced by talking about people filming jumpers from the Golden Gate Bridge on phones. Like, think about the whole 9/11 thing that happened, and that was like only in 2001, right?
Mm-hmm.
There were only a few kind of ways that was filmed. Like these days, you'd have like dash cams, you'd have everyone holding up their phones and digital cameras. Back then, it was only just a couple of cameras on those towers. They didn't even show the first
Usually
plane
news
strike.
footage.
Yeah, news footage or security cameras. Or like people doing the weather. Happens to have a camera pointed in the right direction. But there's only a couple of angles of those things. They don't even show the plane hitting the Pentagon, which gave rise to conspiracy theorists. Because people just didn't have cameras pointing in every direction like they do now, which is a totally different thing. Something so famous and so huge and so culturally impactful across the entire globe, and it would have been like recorded in such a strikingly different way if it happened today. And when people talk about that incident to younger people who weren't around back then, and these younger people might say, well, why weren't people all filming it on their phones? Why weren't people all kind of recording it? Why? Because would be hard to understand that stuff just wasn't around in 2001 at all. There weren't any camera phones.
Boy, what a different kind of world in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah. It's incredible.
Absolutely incredible. And absolutely different. Yeah. It's but things, like as I said before, things actually do have physically, recordably changed much faster in the last 20 or 30 years than they have ever, really. Because we do have this mass communication and mass travel that's so much cheaper and easier to use, which that technology wasn't around before that. So it's a fascinating subject, really.
Yeah, it could go on for 20 more Quackcasts, I think.
And luckily, you can still, just like we started the Quackcast, you can still send away for these 12 cassettes.
Wax cylinders, I'll have you know.
Order. Yeah.
Like you'll get a nice varnished box of these beautiful wax cylinders.
Yes. It's a great gift.
All right. Well, this has been a fascinating Quackcast. I'm glad to have you all on board for it.
Indeed.
Yeah. In my day.
Yeah. Thank you, Tan. Yes.
Guys, can you hear me?
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.